to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King on this 33rd celebration, and thank you all for coming. Everyone knows Larry Gossett is from Seattle. He's a graduate of Franklin High School. He also attended UW, and he is running for his 7th time for Martin Luther King Jr. Council. So let's give him a round of applause as he comes to the mic, please.
I'd like to draw everyone's attention to this year's theme, Fight for Your Rights in 2015. This will be the 34th year in a row that the grassroots organizations led by the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee has organized this excellent salute to the legacy of Dr. King. But every year it gets a little more difficult and challenging to communicate to folks about what his legacy has actually meant to us. And that is my role, and I only got a couple minutes to do it. But starting with today, and I want to start with something that I thought this was very heavy. A couple weeks ago, Jesse Louis Jackson, who's one of the lieutenants of Martin Luther King Jr., was here in Seattle, and he said something very profound. America is forgetting that its African Americans, citizens, were slaves much longer than they have been free in the United States of America. So we were slaves for 250 years, and we've only been free for 150 years. And people in the back say 154. I'm not trying to be precise. Y'all understand what I mean. But on August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King made a very profound point. And he said, America has defaulted on its promissory note. At the end of slavery, it said, America, that it wanted to free its African American slaves. The radicals in the United States Congress said the best way we could do that is 40 acres and a mule. Had they given the 1.9 million African American families 40 acres and a mule, it would have only taken about a little more than 3 states in the South. And we would have had a profound economic base from which to earn and work for what America had already professed to promise all its citizens, freedom and justice. And he always talked about the magnificence of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution that said that all men and women are created equal and should have certain unalienable rights. Today, given our theme, the primary manifestation of the movement that we want to reinforce here today is what young people, organized labor, and other organized groups are doing to continue to work and make it possible for African Americans to take to the Bank of America, and I'm speaking symbolically now, not that, you know, there's a Bank of America, and cash in their check and not always being told that, like Martin said, we have insufficient funds. For America to be a really effective democracy and include everybody, we got work to do. And the young people that are leading this, all right, let's give it up for them. And in closing, the young people that are pushing the modern day mantra of Black Lives Matter are right on point. Right on point. And Black Lives Matter is not a negation of White Lives Matter, or Latino lives mattering, or Native American lives mattering, or Asian and Pacific Islander lives mattering. It just says that our definition of family and humanity and respect must include our African American citizens. That shouldn't be so hard for Americans to live. So the last 2 weeks 2 weeks, still reinforcing our theme for this year. The last 2 weeks, Martin Luther King would have been because he'd only be 86 years old last Thursday. And the 86 is the new 76, according to a lot of people in our medical profession. He'd still be talking, but he would talk about the horrendous loss of 17 lives in France. That was the slaughter of innocent people. Is nothing that he or we should ever condone. He would have been concerned about our brother Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. He was unarmed and he laid on the street 4.5 hours. That was completely inexcusable. But that doesn't mean that he wouldn't have also said that it was a ridiculous, horrific, unfortunate loss of life to lose 2 police officers in Brooklyn, New York, one Asian and one Latino, to a mentally ill cat who tried to justify it based on he was fighting for Michael. So we have to figure out a way to pull all these movements together and build our movement here in Seattle and across the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and happy King's Day. Following Councilmember Larry Gossett, I've been around a long time, and people were talking about doing the civil rights era, what young people were doing. We have never seen young people stand up for blacks like we are seeing across the country after the Michael Brown, the Staten Island, the 12-year-old in Cleveland, and to have conscientious, in some cases predominantly white communities, to have these young people standing up saying Black Lives Matter. One team was kicked out of the tournament. They came back to protest. They had to let them back in. So to cut it short, I would like to welcome up Gerald Henderson, president of the NAACP, and the most prominent person at Garfield High School, Jesse Hagopian, to come up now to honor the students at the schools that walked out after this Ferguson grand jury travesty.
The day after the verdict came down that announced Darren Wilson would walk free with not even a trial, a beautiful thing happened here in Seattle and across the country. And we saw the young people take leadership of the movement that day and say, you all have steered us in the wrong direction, but we have a new vision for racial justice in America. And it's a beautiful thing. So we want to honor them together today. And one thing that particularly touched me was that it wasn't just the schools that were predominantly students of color that led these walkouts. I want to today honor Roosevelt High School for hundreds of students walking out and saying justice for Mike Brown.
I'd like to reiterate that because I want to remind folks that in this last few months, we've seen that everyone thought that the movement was dying and was dead. It was the youth that brought it back to life, that stood up all around the country, all around the country. And let it be known, for those who do not know, they had strength, they used courage, even when still to this day, some still suffer backlash at schools, facing detention, facing expulsion, facing all these different things because they exercised their rights to stand up for something they believed in. So we really have to give a shout out to those folks. And one of the schools that we want to acknowledge today that had the courage to stand up is Cleveland High School. That stood up.
I'm not going to welcome them down.
Representing, faced getting locked out of school because they chose to do so, and they did it anyway in a silent process. So a shout out to Cleveland High School.
We want to acknowledge the courageous young brothers and sisters at Rainier Beach High School who led a walkout for justice for Mike Brown. And you know I'm a bulldog, but I want to acknowledge the courageous youth at Chief South International High School who led a walkout in justice for Mike Brown.
Most recently, I had the pleasure of keynote at a particular high school that decided that they wanted to do a die-in to represent what they felt was an expression. And they was under complete threat of saying, we're going to eliminate the MLK Day. We're going to suspend you if you chose to actually follow through with this die-in. They contacted the community. We showed up and support them, and they did their die-in. Shout out to West Seattle High School. Here they come. Here they come. Represent. Here they come. Come on. Come on.
And finally, yeah, give them the plaque.
Come get y'all plaque. Come get y'all plaque.
And finally, I want to tell you about one of the greatest days of my life. Down the street at 23rd and Union, the NAACP called a rally demanding justice for Mike Brown and a trial for Darren Wilson, and I went down there to support and to speak at that rally, and I told folks on that day that I thought young people were rising, that we were beginning to see a movement like I'd only heard from my parents about fighting. And then when I got off the mic, I had to race back to Garfield before the lunch period ended. Only I didn't get very far because I had to pull my car over because 1,000 students came streaming out of the doors of Garfield High School, chanting, "Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up, don't shoot!" And organized by the Garfield High School Black Student Union, and we're beginning to see that Black Student Union become what we saw under Councilmember Gossett and Aaron Dixon and the leaders of the past, and we're starting to see a new powerful movement. So I want to welcome up to the front Alissa King, who is the president of the Black Student Union at Garfield High School, to claim this award. You want to say a word about what you did?
First of all, I would like to thank all of you all for acknowledging Garfield High School's BSU and our students here that gathered together as one to march down the streets and reiterate that Black lives do matter. After we heard about the Mike Brown incident in Ferguson, we understood that it was time for us to speak. It brought back memories of the Trayvon Martin thing that happened. And we felt like the youth nowadays didn't really have a voice. Like, we had things to say, but we didn't come out and say it. And as a Black Student Union, we thought that it would be important for us to go out there and speak on it as youth and show the youth in the community that we have a voice and our voice is strong. And when we stand together, it makes a difference. So that's what we decided to do. So BSU and Garfield High School students are planning to do more. Because the fight for our lives and the lives of others is not ended, and hasn't ended since Martin Luther King's activism, and it's going to continue. And we will make a change, and the change will come. So, thank you.
I know y'all want to hear about that, but you really already know what's going on in St. Louis City. It's going on in Ohio. It's going on here in Seattle. It's going on in New York. It's going on in Phoenix. It's going on everywhere in the nation, and Albuquerque, and it's called systematic racism, where people of color are deterred, discouraged, and inhibited from reaching their full potential in American society by systems that are to whites only true social services, right? Systems like the education system, the criminal justice system, financial system, the healthcare system, and the media propaganda systems. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on of institutions designed to benefit only one subset of the human race. And those are white people, right? And so this systematic racism is evident when armed white men like Derek Daniel Thomas in New Orleans can go on an entire shooting spree, a high-speed chase, and have a standoff with police and be taken into custody. But unarmed Black children like Tamir Rice are shot dead within seconds of police responding. So we already know about that. We know that this is happening all across the nation in our communities. I want to talk about something that everyone here may not know, right? So I want to talk about race. I want to talk about class, right? We started in Africa, we migrated away, adapted, and evolved in different ways based on the climates we migrated to. We all share 99.9% of our DNA. There is some variation of our DNA based on the different geographical locations and populations, the different geographical locations of populations. And the further apart these populations are, as geneticists Kenneth Wees and Jeffrey Long put it, and the further away these populations are, the greater the differences between them. But the boundaries between populations are, as geneticists Kenneth Wees and Jeffrey Long put it, multi-layered, porous, ephemeral, and difficult to identify. Pure, geographically separated ancestral populations are an abstraction. There is no reason to think that we ever were isolated, homogeneous, parental populations at any time in our human past. Like I said, we are one race on one planet. Race is a social construct, nothing more. One race, the human race. So, as this one race, this human race, a bunch of underclass folks, right? We all really are in the same boat, okay? We are all slaves to the banks who print fiat currency out of thin air, right? Money that has no value, no gold or silver to back it up, right? It's created out of thin air. It's lent to our government at interest, right? That's why we're $18 trillion in debt, right? And we have to work to pay these taxes back, right? That's why there's no money to put in schools or poor communities, right? Because we're so far in debt. And I don't have really enough time to break down the Federal Reserve System. So I encourage you, when you go home, to do a Google search on the truth behind the Federal Reserve and really research and try to understand how we all are slaves to the central banks, to this debt system, and how we all are being oppressed, right? So while we fight each other with this racism garbage, these fat cats like sit up there on the top of the food train, you know, and live like kings while we fight for scraps among each other. I was talking to a reporter, Rihanna, for the name of the magazine is slipping my mind now. I got so many things run through my head. But she asked me what I want y'all to take away from what's been happening in Ferguson, right? And what I would want y'all, and I keep saying Ferguson, I'm getting caught up in that too, but what's been happening in St. Louis, not just Ferguson, is that like iron fist of police repression that they brought down on us when we went out to demonstrate and protest, it can happen here. It will happen here if y'all do what we did. If y'all uprising the way we did, they will come down the same way on y'all, you know? That's what the Pentagon's 1033 program is all about. This program that puts these military-grade weapons, vehicles, and training in the hands of your local police departments, right? It's about repressing the uprising of American citizens with military-like force. White or black, or Asian, or whatever, you know, color you are. I don't want to use the word race, because like I said, it's one race, right? So whatever color you are. And in fact, thanks to the Patriot Act, signed into law by President Bush, and the National Defense Authorization Act, signed into law by President Obama, we all, as American citizens, have no rights, right? If we are deemed a terrorist, which we can be deemed so under suspicion alone, right? They do not have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you are a terrorist. So something as little as participating in a nonviolent protest can have you deemed a terrorist. You can be you can be detained indefinitely without charges or due process. by the United States military under presidential order, under the National Defense Authorization Act. So I just want to say that we all are being oppressed right now. None of us have rights in this society that we're living in today, right? So in order to fight the real problems that we face as underclass citizens in America, first we have to undo racism, right? We have to come together as a people, right? To fight the real powers that be, those 1%ers, those central bankers, the CEOs of corporations, right? Who wants to keep us as crabs in a bucket, fighting one another and not seeing them as the real enemy, the real true enemy. So what does that look like? How do we do that? What are the solutions, right? And I think it's coming together in spaces just like this, right? It's building community with one another. It's building relationships with one another. You know what I'm saying? It's showing love to one another, right? That's the true revolution. That's what the powers that be are really most afraid of, us realizing that we're all connected. One love, one spirit. You know what I'm saying? One energy that flows through all of us, through the universe. You know, that's what they're really most afraid of, is us realizing our true power as the people, you know, and really uprising against the minority who run the country. So I'm getting the time, so I gotta get back. But like I said, I just want to say, how do we move forward in 2015? How do we fight for our rights in 2015? We don't go downtown. We don't yell at police. We don't try to get any like legislation passed, right? We don't try to get these initiatives passed, because just like the racial equity initiative here that Murray Flowers and other organizers got passed here with years of community work a few years ago, is going to be co-opted, right? Because these are the same folks who've been oppressing us this whole time, who we want to uphold these laws that we try to get passed, right? So how do we move forward? We have our own people's assemblies, just like this one here, separate from the state, right? You know what I'm saying? We collectively discuss what issues we face and ways to organize around them. I mean, so what we have to do is we have to transfer that power from the state to the people, right? And the only way we do that is like I said, to come together as one, figure out these issues, what are our issues collectively, organize around those issues, build that community, build those relationships with one another, and out of those relationships, out of that community, we cultivate leadership from right there. We cultivate leadership from within this space, right? And we stack the city council with those people. We stack our school board with those people. You know what I'm saying? And we support and hold them accountable. And they run on a platform that we collectively design as the community. So that's what the solution is. And however that looks, it just looks like I said, bringing love to events, bringing life to events, hold consistent events where folks can come together, build those relationships, have that space to get to know one another, build that community. And I hope y'all hear what I'm saying. All right, I'm
All right, our last speaker for the pre-march is going to be Sheley Secrest. She currently serves as a Career Bridge Program Manager for the Seattle Metropolitan Urban League, where she works to remote institutional barriers to employment among adult Black men. As a graduate of Seattle U School of Law, Dr. Secrest applies her legal knowledge into politics and advocacy work. Sheley Secrest has over 15 years of legislative advocacy. Her experience as a legislative intern for the office of Senator Rosa Franklin and legislative liaison on the Commission on African American Affairs propelled her passion for public service. Let's go ahead and give it up for Miss Dr. Sheley Secrest.
Whose lives matter? Whose lives matter? We cannot go forward with this march without at least paying respect to the young Black men in Seattle who are holding it down to make certain that we challenge ourselves, to make certain that Dr. King, his legacy is more than just a dream. I stand here beside one of my soldiers on the front line, Mr. Harris Howell, who've done tremendous work, both behind prison walls, came back into the community, and is still fighting for our rights. Please, help me welcome.
I got a couple minutes, so I'm going to speak short, but all the young cats, I just want you to do one thing. Put your hands in your head real fast. Just hold it like this. It's symbolic because now you're holding your crown. You're holding what was given to you at birth. You're holding what was given to you in Africa. This is what you normally are. You're a king. Your hands don't go up in surrender. Your hands only go up when you pass your crown down to your descendants. You are a king and you women are queens. Stop letting society tell you who you are. Stop letting music tell you who you are. You find out who you are and you show the government and everybody that doubts you who you really are and who you can be. Like I said last time I spoke, they fear the power that we have as a nation and as a culture. So they try to subdue it and only keep it in secluded areas from urban areas that we call the hood. Well, why not hood be everywhere in Washington State and Ferguson? The reason why stuff like this is allowed to happen because we act like we don't pay attention to it in the streets, but the streets listen and don't want to say nothing because we feel like the government won't hear us. Us young people, we have the voice. Our older people showed us the way, and they paved the way for us. That's why we're here today. And we actually have the freedom of speech. We have the freedom to do what we want. But stop choosing to actually keep it in the hood where they put us at and branch out and do something different. Connect with everybody else. Unity is the biggest power that we have, especially as young folks. Because we encourage everybody else to move like us. So don't encourage everybody to move negative, encourage everybody to move positive. Because that's why I'm encouraging you guys to actually encourage me. I'm 26 years old, but even a little baby right here can encourage me to actually do something better with my life. All you gotta do is open your mouth and speak it. Words are a powerful thing. They can show a lot of people what you mean and actually what you want to do and actually show you your dreams. Your dreams are fulfilled from what you say out your mouth and what you do after you say it. So I ask all you young people, bind together and hold your crown tight and don't let nobody take it from you because that's what we are. We're all royalty. So let's show them what royalty acts like and feels like.
I tried to tell you he's something else, Mr. Arias Howard. Today when we go in March, you make certain that when you step forward, that you do it as more than just a symbolic gesture. You see, when you're a civil rights activist, you got to make certain that you're not doing it for what happened back in the 60s and the 50s. When you're a civil rights activist, you're able to understand that these injustices that we see now, it transcends time.